So I was looking at some tournament results online and I saw this fossil deck run by a player called Young Source. Went 4-2 in a 100-player tournament. So we're going to take a look at the deck, we're going to make some changes, and then we'll talk about some matchups. Hey, I'm Andy, I make videos about Pokemon Pocket, and I also stream on Twitch. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, maybe a cheeky sub, and let's get into it. So let's start with the deck. We've got double Aerodactyl EX, we've got double Rampardos and Pseudo Wudo, double Professor's Research, double Red, Cyrus, Mars, Iono, Guzma, double Skull Fossil, double Old Amber, double Rare Candy. So what's good about this deck? Well, the main thing is reliability when you open. You've only got one Pseudo Wudo, the rest are fossils. So you will always, you're guaranteed to open with Pseudo Wudo. Pseudo Wudo does 20 fighting damage, which is good into the current meta because everyone's running like EVs or type nulls. So you can really threaten the normal types. Also, if the EX does 50, which is a big threat, 70 into Arceus, and Arceus has started showing up a little bit. Then Rampardos is a really big finisher. You can do 130 with the red, that's 150 as well. Aerodactyl is quite a unique one. I mean, so Aerodactyl can do good damage, but its main ability is its main benefit is its ability Primeval Law, and what that does is it means that Pokemon in the active spot can't evolve, and that's kind of a big deal now, because a lot of decks they usually lead with an EV, or they lead with something that needs to evolve, and if you can stop that, you can just crush their game plan. So I took the deck for a spin, played a bunch of games with it, made some tweaks, played more games, and this is the build I've kind of settled on at the moment. So the main change is Pseudo Wudo went for the Hitmonchan. Now obviously doing 50 to an EX is good, but usually you're not gonna really be going into an EX early game. Like, it can happen, but usually you'd be hitting a basic. Hitmonchan just does better. The 30 means that you'll still like 2-shot on EV. You'll 2-shot on EV EX. You'll 2-shot a type null. And also you do 50 damage to that, so it's a 20 damage is something you can heal or you can compensate for with a cape. But doing 30 or 50 that's a bigger deal, so you're putting enough damage that if they retreat something, it's still a problem if you Cyrus it in later. Also, like, as much as I love Pseudo Wudo, the 2 retreat cost, I've never liked it. And we just don't have the room for X speeds to try and compensate. So Rampardos is still there, as is Aerodactyl. The other change we made was we ditched the red for a Sabrina. Double red, I get it, because you want to better hit the X's for a bit more damage. Sabrina just, again, Sabrina and Cyrus, they win games. And also it's kind of very useful if you want to pivot something into Aerodactyl's effect. So if they've got like a Charizard on the bench, you just Sabrina it in. That's just stuck there now. So they're gonna have to spend energy to like put it back and then evolve it and then bring it back in again. So my feeling is Sabrina is the better play. Okay, let's talk about how the deck kind of works. So obviously you've got the guaranteed Hitmonchan at the start of every game. So you're doing 30 damage. That's enough to 2-shot on EV, 2-shot on EVEX, 2-shot any 60 basic. It'll 2-shot a type null. So if they can't get their evolution out, that's 1 point for you. And yeah, if you start with, if you get Aerodactyl out straight away, they can't evolve. So usually the Aerodactyl sits on the bench and then comes in if it needs to. The main damage is your like cruise missile Rampardos. It comes out, does 130 and just starts clearing stuff. So usually you want to like feed in the Hitmonchan, then a Rampardos, then another Rampardos, or the Aerodactyl. And then we've got a bunch of supporters. The big weakness to this deck, like all fossil decks, is that there's no Pokeball equivalent for a fossil. So sometimes you just get scammed and you don't get the fossils out. This is why we have Iono, because if you've got a big hand, no fossils, there's a chance you might pull into it. And then mostly it's control. So Guzma for getting rid of capes and things like that. We've got Sabrina and Cyrus. So Sabrina is very important. And same with Cyrus is, you can control what goes into the active slot that can then get affected by Aerodactyl's ability, or can just get one-shotted. Because usually if you punch something with a Hitmonchan, do 30 damage, or even 50, their first reaction is either going to be, they'll just leave it and let you pick up the point, or they'll retreat it, and at that point you can maybe Sabrina or Cyrus it back in. Red is there basically to even up the numbers, so if you absolutely need to do like 150 damage, That's there for you there. Alright, let's talk matchups. We're starting off with the main deck of the moment. So Sylveon, Greninja, Giratina. They're either going to be leading with Froakie or leading with Eevee. So Aerodactyl can sort of shut down that evolution, which can maybe stall them out a little bit. The Greninjas are a big problem for the fossils, but they don't usually have Sabrina. So one weakness of the deck is you've got Hitmonchan in the active and like a fossil on the bench, and they just Sabrina in the fossil and just get rid of it. So that is always a bit of a threat, but less so in this deck. And again, so the Hitmonchan, you two-shot the Froakie, you two-shot the Eevee, or you put damage on it that even if they go into the Sylveon, you can pick it up with a Cyrus later on. Again, as is the meta right now, if they, you know, Sylveon, if Sylveon just goes off and they draw everything they need, not a lot you can do about it, but then that's the same for every deck. Okay, Dark-Like Giratina. So here, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with Sudowoodo. You can run Sudowoodo. It's more of a personal preference. Still doing 30 damage, these are pretty good. If they're running Rocky or Poison, it's kind of annoying, so you want to get rid of that with the Guzma. But the main thing is the Hitmonchan is bringing these down. Aerodactyl is a lot less useful in this matchup. You can still two-shot things with the Aerodactyl, which is good, and you've got a bit of bulk that they can't one-shot you. But the main plan is you're going to be chipping away 30 damage a time with Hitmonchan, and then you just close it out with the Rampardos. Charizard. So this is probably the deck that I've seen to be one of the weakest to Aerodactyl. Because again, they usually lead with an Eevee. Charmander's probably chilling on the bench. So if you can stop the Sylveon or Sabrina in the Charmander, that really messes up their day. You do 130 with the Rampardos, which is good because that is enough to, even if they Lily. So also one of the weaknesses of the deck is if you put damage on the Eevee, it becomes a Sylveon. That's 2 points you can Cyrus and then take out later in the game. But the main thing is you need to put a little bit of damage on the Charizard and hope they don't Lily. So another deck that leans on its evolutions is what they're calling the Eevee box. So this deck, usually what happens is you've got an Eevee on the active slot, Eevee on the bench, and then they lead with Leafeon, and maybe they've got the other Leafeon or a Flareon on the bench. Aerodactyl basically stops the Leafeon coming out, and then you just start picking up the Eevee. So you can two-shot on Eevee, you can two-shot on EVX with Hitmonchan. If Aerodactyl's out as well, you just two-shot everything here pretty much. Like Rampardos one-shots everything with a red. So that's for the deck. So I've noticed from the YouTube statistics that maybe people mainly just stick around for like talking about the deck and like what's in it and the matchups. People don't really stick around for the games. So the games are going to be in a separate video from a live stream. I'll link it down in the description below. So if you want to see the deck in action, go check that out. And yeah, cheers. I'll see you later.